Chapter 9.
We are reading Ikigai Chapter 9. We're reading Ikigai Chapter 9. In the book and page number 104 in the PDF.
Resilience and Wabi Sabi. How to face life's challenges without letting stress and worry age you. What is resilience? One thing that everyone with a clearly defined Ikigai has in common is that they pursue their passion no matter what. They never give up, even when the cards seem stacked against them or they face one hurdle after another.
So again, once you have your Ikigai, then because it's your passion, always there'll be ups and downs. In life, there are always ups and downs. There'll be certain issues that you will face. But if it is your Ikigai, then you persist. You keep doing it. You keep doing it. You keep doing it. You don't let it go. You don't let go of what you're doing. Shivangla, we can't hear you.
You've not put the.
We are talking about resilience, a concept that has become influential among psychologists. But resilience isn't just the ability to persevere. As we'll see in this chapter, it is also an outlook we can cultivate to stay focused on the important things in life rather than what is most urgent, and to keep ourselves from being carried away by negative emotions.
So again,
In the
resilience is
final
what?
section of the chapter, we'll explore.
Shivangla, 1 second.
I
Okay,
wasn't
so resilience is also the basis of what Institute of Heart Math runs. So they say that resilience is the ability to bounce back after facing an adverse situation. So if you're resilient, your bounce back will be faster. What we've seen is that when people use the hemisync technology as well as the techniques of the HeartMath Resilience Advantage program, their ability to bounce back definitely increases. Their outlook to life definitely takes a shift, provided you actually pay attention and start bringing things into awareness, into perspective. And over here, he says a very good thing, focused on the important things in life rather than what is most urgent, to keep ourselves from getting carried away by negative emotions. So, again, as soon as you have a negative emotion, it is basically putting you on the left side of the grid. Okay. So, the idea is to be able to understand that I'm going on the left side of the grid, and then again to put a strategy to bring us back into the right side of the grid.
In the final section of the chapter, we'll explore techniques that go beyond resilience and agility. Sooner or later, we all have to face difficult moments, and the way to do this can make a huge difference to our quality of life. Proper training for our mind, body, and emotional resilience is essential for confronting life's ups and downs. Resilience is our ability to deal with setbacks.
Shivangla, you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
So then when I say to stop, you have to stop now. Okay, so anti-frugility. This is an important work over here. Many times we think that we have to cringe, we have to become frugal. But the fact of the matter is that if we can understand what we need and what we don't need, a lot of the stuff that we have around us, we actually don't need. Like today, how many clothes are you wearing? If you really see during the lockdown period, how many clothes did you use? How much of food did you eat? What did you, how much were you spending on yourself? So ultimately, what was important is being done. What was not important was not being done. Okay. And we all face difficult moments in the life. The way we handle it during those times is what shows how resilient we are. Chungla, you can go ahead.
Sooner or later, we all have to face difficult moments, and the way we do this can make a huge difference to our quality of life. Proper training for our mind, body, and emotional resilience is essential for confronting life's
Yeah,
Bhaiya,
go
can I
ahead.
ask you one thing?
Uh,
Bhaiya, you had said something about to do only important and not the urgent. But urgent also one would have to do, no? Because
so
it's
see,
urgent,
what
you have to.
I
What is the
understand,
difference?
what I'll tell you, the way, see, all of us have a to-do list.
Right.
Okay. Now, when we have a to-do list, in our small mind, we think that we need to do this X task first and Y task later on. But ultimately, when the higher state of consciousness, what may be important to do or what may be needed to be done first is something very different from what we consider with our small mind
Okay.
important to be done. Okay.
Okay.
What I have started doing is, I know I have a to-do list.
Hmm.
I allow my intuition to guide me as to which task I need to do.
Okay.
Rather than looking, I make the list, but then when I see the list, I just see which item brightens up. And then I just simply do that. And I've been finding that it works for me. So when he's
Right.
saying over here that stay focused on important things rather than what is most urgent. So, in your view, something may be more urgent, but there may be a more important task which needs to be done first before the urgent task. So, if you allow your intuition to work, then it works better, according to me.
Okay. Because we do tend to do the urgent first, actually.
Yeah, but then
We
it
do
may
tend
not
to
be
do
very
that.
important. It may not be
Huh.
very important.
Okay. Yeah, I got it now. We do all tend to.
Yeah.
Resilient people know how to stay focused on their objectives, on what matters, without giving in to discouragement. Their flexibility is the source of their strength. They know how to adapt to change and to reversals of fortune. They concentrate on the things they can control and don't worry about those they can't.
So again, over here, we spoke about Robert Monroe's list, which he's talked about in Far Journeys. So he says that break it up into three lists, right? Put all the stuff, put everything that you can't do anything about in A list, put everything that you need to do something about in B list, and put everything that you want to do in C list. Okay. So over here, they say very clear, concentrate on the things that they can control and don't worry about the things they can't. So even Robert Monroe said you concentrate on only on B and C list, get rid of the A list because you can't do anything about it. So if you can't do something about something and then you're focusing your attention and your mind on that, then you're unnecessarily putting rocks in your backpack. It really doesn't make sense.
In the words of the famous Serenity Prayer by Rainer Niebuhr, God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other.
So many times we are banging our head against the wall, attempting to change something that cannot be changed. And if we do not understand that, then we create a problem for ourselves. So if I have the wisdom to be able to understand what I can do something about and what I can't do something about, then automatically life becomes better. Why? Because I don't pay attention and don't lagao my head on stuff that I can't do anything about.
Emotional resilience through Buddhism and Stoicism. Siddharth Gautam Buddha was born a prince of Kapilavastu, Nepal, and grew up in a palace surrounded by riches. At 16, he married and had a child. Not satisfied by his family's wealth, at 29, he decided to try a different lifestyle and ran away from the palace to live as an ascetic. But it wasn't asceticism that he was looking for. It didn't offer the happiness and well-being he sought. Neither wealth nor extreme asceticism worked for him. He realized that a wise person should not ignore life's pleasures. A wise person can live with these pleasures but should always remain conscious of how easy it is to be enslaved by them.
So what is happening? Now you do not, to get self-realization, you do not need to go into the wilderness to be alone. You can be alone and create that ambience within the state of consciousness that you're living in, or in your day-to-day life itself. It's all a matter of creating that shift in your state. Once you are able to do that shift in your state, then automatically things will start to fall in place. Now, what he says over here is very important. A wise man can live with these pleasures, but should always remain conscious of how easy it is to be enslaved by them. So if you are doing something, if you get into a habit of enjoying something and you can't do without it, then that becomes a problem, because you are hooked onto that particular pleasure or that particular thing. I want to eat this every time. If there is less salt, I get mad, I get angry. So all those factors which are there, we need to transcend.
Zeno of Citium began his studies with the Cynics. The Cynics also led ascetic lives, leaving behind all earthly pleasures. They lived in the street, and the only thing they owned was the clothing on their backs. Seeing that cynicism did not give him a sense of well being, Zeno abandoned its teachings to found the school of Stoicism, which centers on the idea that there is nothing wrong with enjoying life's pleasures as long as they do not take control of your life as you enjoy them. You have to be prepared for those pleasures to disappear.
So again, even in the Gita, we are constantly told that don't get attached to things. Detachment is what gives you self-realization. So he's saying the same thing over here. Use everything, but without attachment, so that if they disappear from your life, you still do not have any issue or problem.
The goal is not to eliminate all feelings and pleasures from our lives, as in cynicism, but to eliminate negative emotions.
So now this is very important, but to eliminate negative emotions. Now, whenever you are in a depleting state of consciousness, in a depleting state of emotions, you're on the left side of the grid. So again, over here, if you really see, what he's talking about is getting out of the left side of the grid and coming onto the right side.
Since their inception, one of the objectives of both Buddhism and Stoicism has been to control pleasure, emotions, and desires. Though the philosophies are very different, both aim to curb our ego and control our negative emotions.
So again, control our pleasure, emotions, and desires. As soon as you have a desire, technically you are attached to the desire. Now, if you are attached to the desire, it becomes a problem. So if you have a desire, you need to transcend the desire, or you need to overcome that desire. One way is to experience it and transcend it. The other way is to drop the desire and allow whatever is happening to happen. So both aim to curb our ego. Whenever we are operating from ego, we go on the left side of the grid and control our negative emotions, which again takes us to the left side of the grid.
Both Stoicism and Buddhism are at their roots methods for practicing well being. According to Stoicism, our pleasures and desires are not the problem. We can enjoy them as long as they don't take control of us. The Stoics viewed those who were able to control their emotions as virtuous.
So again, if you have control over your emotions, then automatically you come into a state of consciousness which puts you on the right side of the grid.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
So now this is important, okay? Now, if you're willing to accept the worst, then whatever happens is better than the worst. Okay, so this becomes very important. So I always say, what's the worst that can happen? You'll die. Nothing worse can happen beyond that. Once you accepted that you can die, then after that everything is technically okay.
We finally land our dream job, but after a while, we are already hunting for a better one. We win the lottery and buy a nice car, but then decide we can't live without a sailboat. We finally win the heart of the man or woman we've been pining for, and suddenly we have a wandering eye.
So now what happens? Once one desire is fulfilled, another desire crops up. So unless you are aware of what is happening and you can drop your desires, till then one will lead to the other. And a self-realized person is not attached to any desire. He is actually taken care of most of his desires which are there. So he becomes equanimetical. He operates out of equanimity in all states. Sukh, dukh, if you say happiness or sadness. If he has something, he's okay. If he doesn't have something, he's okay. So he operates on the neutral path. And that's when you start really hitting it.
People can be insatiable. The Stoics believe that these kinds of desires and ambitions are not worth pursuing. The objective of the virtuous person
We can't hear you, Shimangla.
The Stoics believe that these kind of desires and ambitions are not worth pursuing. The objective of the virtuous person is to reach a state of tranquility, apatheia, the absence of negative feelings such as anxiety, fear, shame, vanity, and anger, and the presence of positive feelings such as happiness, love, serenity, and gratitude.
So again, we
In
come
order to
back to the
keep the minds
resilience grid. We
virtuous,
come back, Shimangla, 1 second. We come back totally to the resilience grid, where if you see anxiety, shame, fear, vanity, and anger, they're all on the left side of the grid. And presence of positive feelings such as happiness, love, serenity, and gratitude, they are all on the right side of the grid. So basically, again, the game is to shift from the left side to the right side of the grid.
Who started Stoicism?
I don't know, it says over here, Zeno. It says Zeno of Citium with his studies of the Cynics. Then when he got over the study with the Cynics, he said, no, this is not working. He started this new thing.
Thank you. Okay.
Shivangla.
yeah, to practice negative visualization,
You've missed out in order to
we
keep
have
the
to
virtuous
reflect
mind.
on
Shivangla,
negative
what are you
events,
doing today?
but without practice something like negative, the worst thing that could happen in all
Shivangla, you come
from
here
them.
only. Chalo.
In order to keep their minds virtuous, the Stoics practice something like negative visualization. They imagine the worst thing that could happen in order to be prepared if certain privileges and pleasures were taken from them.
So what was this meaning? That if you're prepared for the worst, then anything that happens is better than the worst. I'm sure. No.
Seeing that cynicism did not give him a sense of well being, Zeno abandoned.
You have to be just think about where you.
To practice negative visualization, we have to reflect on negative events, but without worrying about them.
So again, we have to take care of what is happening, but we need not worry about them. We need to be in the present moment and do whatever is necessary to be done for that particular thing.
To practice negative visualizations, we have to reflect on negative events but without worrying about them. Seneca, one of the richest men in ancient Rome, lived a life of luxury but was nonetheless an active Stoic. He recommended practicing negative visualization every night before falling asleep. In fact, he not only imagined these negative situations, he actually put them into practice. For example, by living for a week without servants or the food and drink he was used to as a wealthy man. As a result, he was able to answer the question, what's the worst thing that could happen?
So again, he's putting what his thoughts were into practice. So he's actually experiencing the worst that could happen. So naturally, he's preparing himself for the worst. So if the worst happens, he is not troubled by it.
Meditating for healthier emotions. In addition to negative visualization and not giving in to negative emotions, another central tenet of Stoicism is knowing what we can control and what we can't, as we see in the Serenity Prayer.
So again, anything that we try to control that we cannot control, it will put us on the left side of the grid. So being aware of where we are operating from the grid itself can take care of this entire thing that we are talking about over here.
Worrying about things that are beyond our control accomplishes nothing. We should have a clear sense of what we can change and what we can't, which in turn will allow us to resist giving in to negative emotions.
So now we are reading a book right now, but if I start thinking that is my car punctured downstairs, now that means that I'm neither reading the book nor I am doing anything about the punctured car. So the point here becomes that to focus on the moment we focus in the moment and do what needs to be done, automatically our efficiencies start to go up and automatically we come on the right side of the grid also.
In the words of Epictetus, it is not what happens to you, but how you react that matters.
So the same thing may happen. Now, we keep using this example in the Resilience Advantage program. You're going into an emergency room and one doctor is hakka bakka, he's saying kya kare, kya kare, kya kare. And the other doctor is very, very clear cut. He gives precise instructions to do what needs to be done. Now, who are you going to really deal with? The situation is exactly the same, but how you are reacting the situation makes all the difference.
In Zen Buddhism, meditation is a way to become aware of our desires and emotions and thereby free ourselves from them. It is not simply a question of keeping the mind free of thoughts, but instead involves observing our thoughts and emotions as they appear, without getting carried away by them. In this way, we train our minds not to get swept up in anger, jealousy, or resentment.
So what does this mean? It is not simply a question of keeping minds free of thought, but also involves observing our thoughts. So we are constantly saying everything originates from the thought. So what is the thought leading you to? So when I'm having a thought, which state of consciousness am I operating from? Am I operating from the left side of the grid or the right side of the grid? Now, the thought is what all action originates with the thought. So if you have the thought, so where is that thought coming from makes every difference. So we train our minds not to get swept up in anger, jealousy, or resentment. Just 1 second, I'll have to take this call.